Marty Up North. Thanks for joining me. A pleasure, as always, to have you come on the show. And, well, here you are again.
Yeah, welcome back. I've been watching your podcast from overseas, and looks like you had a blast in Japan. So hope the trip was good.
I had a great time. It was fantastic. It was long though. It was a bit over the length of time for keeping yourself informed with like the news cycle and everything that's been going on. And this is why I wanted to bring you in, because I follow your Twitter quite a lot, and you have a lot to say, and you're not afraid of saying the unpopular thing. That's really why I like following you and what's going on. And I've noticed.
Believe it or not, I bite my tongue once in a while. I don't unleash as much as I'd like to. There's well, it's not who I am, right? I mean, I want to create. I don't want to create controversy for the sake of creating controversy. So if somebody says something stupid, then yes, you're gonna hear it from me. But lately I've realized that maybe I'm getting old, and when if you get a little too controversial, some of the attacks are a little bit fatiguing. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna get
In
into it.
particular,
Well,
yeah, yeah.
we're gonna get into a bunch of the different ones, and I'll tell you all about my trip and stuff, and that'll be fun for later in the show. But and what's going on in Japan, and basically how they view Canada. But I kind of wanted to have you fill me in on some of the stuff that's been going on, and I mean, where do you start? Well, pick a spot, I guess.
I'm staring at a little list of things on paper that I just wrote down in the last 3 minutes. Like let's see how far back I can go. And when you left, so when you left, had Christine Anderson, the MP from Germany, had she visited Canada yet, or was that while you were gone or before?
That was, oh geez, was that she visited when I was in Canada, and there was
Okay.
there was NPs that met with her, Leslyn Lewis and a few
Because that
others.
was, yeah, that was an interesting event. I think I'm trying to frame the timeline here. So that happened.
So I'll tell you this. I'll tell you
The
this. When
Okay.
Pierre Polyev, when his words came out, or were told by Kinsella, or the other guy from the Star, that happened when I was in Japan, and that was a big shocker for me. So and I spoke about that in one of my live streams.
Yeah, and I'd say actually what I remember the most at that time, and I'm glad it happened. To me, it seemed like a nothing burger at the time. And that's basically what it turned out to be. And I'm kind of glad that, and this will be a recurring theme. There's a lot that happened, but there's also a lot that didn't happen in the last month, and it's obvious that some people like Pierre Poilievre in particular and Danielle Smith, to actually perhaps to a greater extent, they're being attacked right now, but they're not in full election mode. So they're being smart about some of the things, and they're easing up a bit, and then they're letting the attacks bounce off, and then they're letting the Trudeaus and others and the Notleys self implode. So that's been one of the fascinating things in the last month is just watching the gong show. And I think some of the really smart politicians are just on the sideline. So that was an example of that. I'm glad how that got handled. It was an example of trying to of some people trying to make something out of nothing.
Well, yeah, okay. Let
um
me get your take on that then, because like I was a little I want to say disappointed. So I saw Christine Anderson's speeches, and I didn't know a huge ton about her history. But then I heard some of the things that she said. Like, for example, she said that Islam is not a religion; it's a political ideology. I mean, I can disagree with a person on a thing like that. I
yeah,
disagree with that personally, but
yeah,
that
yeah.
doesn't mean I want to demonize the person. I don't want to demonize her, and they're demonizing her political party, which has about 20% of the government in Germany, which
they they, they,
it's a
they were
mainstream party.
certainly, yeah, yeah, they were demonizing her for sure, and then they were demonizing people for meeting with her.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I mean when I say, like, yeah, do I fully support her views? no, but I mean, but I don't find her that extremist. And in fact,
No.
the attacks towards her were over the top. I mean, like, let's talk about it. I mean, that saga continued on until yesterday. So yesterday there was an interesting event in the House of Commons where, they're debating Bill C-27, like an obscure bill, not even in the House of Commons. And what's her name, Jennifer O'Connell, still tried to get still tried to make something out of that event. And so she was doing a back and forth with Leslie Lewis, the conservative MP who ran for the leadership.
Hmm.
And then she basically challenged her because Lewis was one of the people who met with Anderson.
Yeah, that's right.
And so it still came out yesterday in the House of Commons. She's like, should O'Connell said to Lewis, shouldn't there be repercussions for the fact that you met with somebody with radical views? And Lewis just came unglued on her, basically saying, I'm allowed to do that. I'm an MP. I can meet with somebody who has unpopular opinions. How dare you try to slander me as a Nazi? And then Lewis went one step further, saying, your leader has done blackface 3 times, has denigrated blacks, and has gone as far as putting a banana in his pants and strutting around like that. So it's like, and O'Connell retreated like fiercely. And when you go on the internet, that backfired. That bullshit of hers towards
Hmm.
Lewis backfired because, you know what? I mean, let's face it, Nazism isn't even a thing in Canada. I'm personally tired of that thing
Yeah.
because, like, it's not a thing. I don't see Nazi flags everywhere. I don't see Confederate flags. I don't see, I'm tired of the Nazi call. It's actually, isn't there a rule? There's a rule on the internet that as soon as you use the word Nazi, you've lost the argument.
It's
I can't remember.
Godwin's law. That's what it's called. It's called
Is it?
Godwin's
Yeah.
law. Yeah.
Yeah, and some guys jump in like, so enough with that, so
Well,
yeah,
she went extra
I'm
far
rambling.
though. She incited the Nazi thing, and then she said that Christine Anderson was a Holocaust denier, and a bunch of other
Oh,
claims that are illegitimate claims that don't actually hold water with the whole situation with this woman,
well,
right?
it bring up the don't, sorry, Joe, don't bring it up, but I mean, she used she mispronounced the word Holocaust. She mispronounced the word the repercussions. I mean, she was like sounding like a schoolgirl, nervously reading her script and making a mockery of herself. And I posted about that. I said, "Listen, this is insane." And I actually I went through the effort of finding her phone numbers and posting her phone numbers on Twitter. I called Jen O'Connell's office, and I left a voicemail. And I tried to be as diplomatic as possible, but I said what I just said. Enough of this Nazi crap. You're insulting the intelligence of Canadians when you do something like that, And I said, you focus on real problems, because at the end of the day, it is frustrating, where the country's in a bit of a dumpster fire, not a bit of a dumpster fire,
A
like a
huge
huge
one.
dumpster fire.
Yeah.
And we got people focused on, what happened while you were gone. I mean, we got people focused on that. We got people here in Calgary, we're still arresting pastors or citizens because they're protesting a drag queen or drag time, whatever, story time at the library. We got, like, come on, let's focus on some real problems.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
what do
I
you
mean,
got
that's a
there?
lot to swallow right away. That's a lot.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
lot in
yeah.
one go. One thing that I noticed online when I was away was a huge split on the right. I noticed like a lot of I don't know what the deal is. I don't know what the deal is because I get along with everybody. Like I try my best to get along with everybody, and I can't agree with everybody. And we have to understand that in Canada, we live in a country. Well, I mean, everywhere in the world, you live in places where you're going to have people who agree with you, and you're going to have people who disagree with you, and then you're going to have people who agree with some of what you have to say, and will side with you, but don't necessarily take all the points. But I saw a bit of puritanism when it comes to some people on the right saying, well, it has to be all this way, or you're not good enough to be on the right, and you're just as bad as the liberals or something like that. I don't know if that's exactly what they're saying.
Yeah, well, if you want to, we can jump into that one. I mean, I joked about the fact that I kicked the hornet's nest twice in the last 6 weeks when I made negative comments about Max Bernier,
Hmm.
and it is my observation that when I make something negative about him, his real diehard followers are ruthless, and I've said, listen, I've been critical of Trudeau for sure, and he's the leader of the country. But
Hmm.
even here, closer to home, I mean, I was critical of Jason Kenney. Like I've been extremely critical of Jason Kenney,
Hmm.
and look at what happened. Kenny got voted out, and so am I that partisan that I only criticize certain people? No, I've criticized lots of people. I've even criticized Danielle Smith recently because I'm still a little somewhat upset that we're not releasing the COVID information. But anyways,
Okay.
my point that I'm making is I'm critical of a lot of people, but it's my observation that the worst defenders or the most diehard defenders are the PPC, and I can say matter of factly, yeah, when I criticized Kenny, some people came after me and said, "What are you doing?" But it didn't feel over the top threatening. But when I criticize Max, holy smokes, man! So that's one thing. It's the attack, and then I don't like being accused. And the attack goes on to anybody who criticizes Max. Perhaps I get more criticized because I was a Max supporter and I'm no longer a Max supporter,
Mm.
and so I'm an apostate. I stopped following Max. And when people say, why did I stop following Max? I say for two very good reasons. One is he lost 2 elections, so I'm kind of done with him, and
Right.
I'd like to have a change in the PPC. Perhaps that's one reason. But the other thing too is that I'm also being very pragmatic right now, which is as an Albertan, in the last 7 years, I'm being attacked. It's more than just an interference now. It's a government in Ottawa that's actually hostile towards me as an Albertan with their just transition and with their blocking of oil and their gun grabs and things like that. So I got to get rid of Trudeau. So very pragmatically, I got to get rid of Trudeau, and so the right will come back and say, I've abandoned some principles and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it's like it's not a hill I'm going to die on. I'm not, I got to live to fight another day, and right now it's not about Max. So I've eased up on those kind of engagements because I really would like the right to unite in a way, and find a common ground. But then I also resolve myself to the fact that that group is about 3 or 4%, and I'm going to call them insignificant. So if they want to engage, I'll engage. If they don't want to engage, I'll stop engaging. Let's put it that way.
That's fair. I mean, I've just had it. I've had like a confusing sort of run with people. So if I say good things about Pierre Polyev, I'll get attacked from people on the right for having supported Pierre Polyev. And then I'll have things to say about Pierre Polyev. Like I was very critical about the way he handled the whole Christine Anderson situation. I wasn't a fan of how he did that, and especially by doing it through a reporter and then not coming clean about what he said for about a week, I guess it was. It was really
Yeah.
sloppy, and it wasn't. It didn't seem right, and I wasn't a fan about it. But people accused me of being a PPC bra, and I've never been a PPC bra. I mean, I like Maxime Bernier. I think he's a great guy, and I've had him on the show a bunch of times. Let him speak and give his ideas out there. I'm not an advocate for one way or another. I'm just a guy with a voice, and I'll make my own decisions, and I hope everybody makes their own decisions on their own. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, you made a comment at that. Actually, I remember the tweet. I said, "God help me out here. Like, of my supporters, how are you guys divided?" And it was like 75-25. So 75% of my supporters are PPC, are conservative, and the other 25 are PPC. So that actually tempered my tweets going forward. But I remember your comment very specifically saying, "I'm a supporter and I'm not going to say," and I totally respect that.
Hmm.
And I wasn't trying to find out who individually they were. I was just trying to get a sense of how is there a divide, and is there, and do I need to help mend it? And I'll help. And yes, going forward, I want to try and help to mend. But I'm going to come back to another point, which is right now. One of the reasons I've dropped that is because I have to focus on Alberta. Like I have to prioritize right now, and Trudeau is like years away. Well, actually, there were moments in the last 2 weeks where we thought, oh, maybe we are closer to an election than we thought. But honestly, right now, I mean, I just got my voter card for Alberta, and the next battle is here in Alberta. It is what it is. So I'm just going to back off on the Poiliev and let him do his thing, and let Max do his thing for the near future.
Well, I think you're right when it comes to the idea they're not gonna burn out when it's not even an election for them. So why use all their political clout, or use everything they've got now?
And I'm like you. I mean, back to Poiliev, I didn't like the way he handled that. I thought he could have handled the whole Christine thing much more eloquently. But at the end of the day, I wasn't going to be. It wasn't a hill to die on, and I wasn't going to be critical, because I tried to explain to a lot of people. In fact, if it's a nasty strategy, it's a good strategy by the Liberals to put him on the defensive all the time, and so he has to ignore that. I mean, I don't. It's too easy to accuse somebody of something. I mean, he went through I think he mishandled the Mingtao, the tags in his YouTube videos, and now he's learning that don't take the bait on everything.
Well, yeah, and that was a nothing. That was a big nothing in the end. And I'm sure, like the MGTOW thing, it was some staffer put that in, thought it would make his videos.
You're on YouTube, right? I mean, you've created YouTube videos. You know about hashtags. They're buried in there. Most people don't even know they exist.
Well, and an interesting thing that I learned was tags will get added to your channel based on things that other people are viewing on your channel. So I went in
I didn't know that.
After that happened, because I hadn't used tags in a long time, and my channel's been around for a long time. It's just only popular recently, but because the channel's been around for a long time, these tags they're actually a legacy thing. YouTube doesn't even use them. Hashtags are used,
right,
and only 3 of them,
right,
and they're in your description. But the back end tags, YouTube doesn't actually even use them for SEO or anything, and your videos aren't going to make it anywhere on SEO. They're going to make it on recommendations anyway. So it's not even worth your time as a YouTuber to use these things. But that being said, right, a bunch of them I noticed got added to my channel, and I was wondering, like, I don't remember adding those, because there was like ones that had to do with, and not MGTOW or anything like that, but it was just other things that were popular things that I was talking in the realm of what I was talking about.
So MGTOW was being searched so much that week, I went and put it in all my videos so that I would get discovered. So you mean I did it for nothing?
Yeah, there you go.
I better go change them. Yeah, I'm gonna go put Christine Anderson for all my tag. No, that's what would be a good tag this week. The 2 Michaels. I'm gonna put the 2 Michaels. That's already gone. Man, the news cycle is so fast now.
It's funny.
The 2 Michaels, right? You must have heard about the 2 Michaels.
I drove that one home. I think I drove that one home because I like, okay, if we're gonna get into that one now, we're gonna get into that one now. This one really upset me. Of all the scandals, they're just corrupt politicians at the end of the day. I mean, SNC Lavalin. Oh yeah, you're just gonna fire the attorney general to get one that's not gonna charge my friend's company. You know what I mean? Like these are scandals. It's nepotism. It's the usual. This is what we expect from corrupt politicians. They're just getting more and more corrupt all the time. This one really took the cake for me, because this is a scandal where an individual in the Liberal Party is being accused of having contacts with Communist Party diplomats in a time when there is 2 Canadian citizens being held captive in what was described as torture-like conditions, right? And this member of Parliament who's being accused, and I'm saying it's an accusation because he's suing now over this. Han Dong, he's suing Global over this story.
Global, who found the MTOW tags in
yes,
Poiliev videos.
Same thing. But this is a big scandal because if when it comes down to it, like fundamentally, what is the role of a government? I mean, nowadays it's the role of government is all these crazy things that I don't believe that should be the role of government, but they're involving themselves in all kinds of other things. But its number one goal, the goal of a government, is to protect its citizens. And for a leader in a country to not only neglect the betterment or the well-being of a citizen, but to betray it and use it as a
After knowing some information that could be useful.
and
Yes.
use it as a tool to benefit politically, to negotiate with another country and keep those men in captivity for another year or so in order to benefit them politically, because for some reason they felt that the conservatives would have benefited had they been released at that time. Now, that being said as well,
Yeah.
there's no way a MP, if he had done this, did it unilaterally. I don't think he would have done this without somebody else in the cabinet either knowing about it, okaying it, or actually suggesting it. That's my speculation on that.
There's almost, well, yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. But just on that point, no, unilaterally, no. Maybe a very low level meeting if you happen to be, somebody's visiting, but not something of that magnitude. There's no way. But think about how this was all mismanaged, right? And the only doubt that I had in my mind briefly in the last couple of weeks was like, holy shit, maybe they are spies. But then I go, well, it's irrelevant. Even if they are spies, they're still Canadian citizens, and we need to bring them back. So, but in my research, I do think they are genuine Canadian citizens. The one Michael in particular, who's studied Korean history and worked in Korea. There's nothing in his background. I mean, the guy, it was a tit for tat. We arrested look at the history. Donald Trump calls us. We answer the phone. He says, "Can you detain this Chinese lady at the airport?" We should have just said, "Sorry, the plane's already gone," but we're too naive, and we say, "Oh, sure, we'll detain her." So she gets detained. Then somebody in China says, "Hey, how many Canadians are in China right now? 10,000? All right, find me 2 and arrest 2 of them." And then we arrested the 2, and then the whole saga goes from there. But what upset me the most last week was the fact that at the very last minute, they were invited to the House of Commons when Joe Biden was there, and we paraded them around like they were. That to me was that was so bizarre, because it in fact, it looked like the tables had turned. It looked like we were parading them around as if we were their captors and holding up to the world, saying, "Look, they're not being harmed." It was such a bizarre event, but at the end of the day, I thought it was going to be one of those events that, I keep praying, like, what's going to stick to Trudeau? What's finally going to stick? And man, he might walk away from this one again. I just don't understand it. Like, why would anybody not be as offended as you and I at that whole saga? I have no idea. No idea.
Well, like I said, that was the one that drove me the worst. That that one really affected me. And I mean, I've traveled the world. I know what it's like to go around.
Give me a perspective. So what was it? What did that look like from overseas? What did Japan think of that?
So it's interesting. A majority of people in Japan don't even know what's going on in Canada. A majority of them.
Right.
But I was at a dinner with a bunch of my wife's school friends. Like they went to school together, and we all met up, and we're all hanging out at this big long table. And one of the friends from across the table yells over. He's like, "Hey, Clyde, so that Trudeau guy's a real piece of work, hey?" And the whole table was like, "Oh," like they all had an expression like, "Yeah, that's horrible. It's horrible what you guys are going through." So I think they understand, but
I don't know why what's his name, Hang Dong, or I can why do you think he's suing? Why actually he voted in favor of an interesting motion, right? Because in the events leading to that, I mean, first of all, there's we're suspecting there's a Chinese interference in the elections. That's fine. You got somebody like Andy Lee and several journalists, and out of the woodwork, you start learning that there's been dozens and dozens of journalists that have been digging into this interference for years. It's not recent. It appears recent, but there's lots of people. So there's
It
real
goes way
legs to the
back.
fact that it goes way back, and now it's really surfacing, and we're about to um, and and Trudeau fought while you were gone, fought tooth and nail because we're trying to have this committee just to investigate into it, and they filibustered in the committee for like 3 days in a row, because all the committee was trying to do was bring somebody like Kathy Telford and others from the Prime Minister's office to see what they knew about the interference.
Hmm.
And then the compromise was, we'll appoint this rapporteur who happens to be a family friend. I mean, holy gong show, gong show, gong show. And then ultimately there is a vote, a vote to put the wheels in motion for an investigation into it, and that's where Han Dong voted in favor. He voted against the party line to investigate. So does he feel that he's truly going to be exonerated and he wants an investigation, or is he just doing it because, I don't know, because it gives him credibility to start a lawsuit against some, I don't know. We
Against
haven't
global
heard the end of
news.
this. We haven't heard the end of
So
this. We haven't
it's
heard
an
the end of this.
interesting thing because he quit the party. He quit the party as this information came out. So he resigned himself as a liberal, not as an MP. He didn't resign his post.
No, he's just an independent. Yeah.
He's just an independent now, and it came out as at the point. I mean, like usually when a scandal like this happens, it's usually a sign of guilt when somebody drops their position because of the scandal. If you feel that you're innocent, you claim your innocence and you keep your post. I mean, Trudeau has, even though other people have said, no, you're not innocent in this, and in many occasions, and no, he's kept his post. So it's really odd to me that Han Dong dropped his position, claimed his innocence, and now he's voted against the Liberals on this. Now, my thought on him voting against the Liberals and for this investigation with the rapporteur is, I'm sure he has no confidence that the rapporteur is going to uncover anything. I
It's
mean,
actually not an investigation with the rapporteur. He still has his job, but his job is irrelevant now because there was a motion saying there should still be because the rapporteur was just supposed to come back and say, is there something here worth investigating? But now there's a motion that says there is. So we haven't even
so
heard
he's
what's happening
redundant.
with he's redundant. The vote made him, that's my understanding. Now
Oh,
I
that's
haven't,
funny.
maybe worth digging into it, but and that saved face for him. God, I mean, look at this. Now I'm really remembering last week. I mean, last week there was 2 weeks ago there was there truly was a thought that Trudeau was going to prorogue Parliament again because the scandals were just piling up so much that at this point, like between a rock and a hard place, he was going to prorogue Parliament and let this drop. The other thing that he was going to drop, the gun grabs not going for him, the language laws. I mean, he's got some opposition to C11, C21. He had Marc Garneau resign. I don't know if that was before you left or after you left, but Marc Garneau resigned. And in hindsight, we're all going, yeah, okay, now we get it, because he was in a position that was untenable with his constituents. He couldn't be in favor of the language bills. So Trudeau, like, it
I
really
don't
was
even know
going to
any
be
of that.
looking.
Fill me in. What's the language bills and Marc Garneau resigning?
Oh, there's still some, there's still behind the scenes, there's still some messing around with the Official Language Act in Canada, and so I don't know why they keep touching these kinds of things, and there's a victory somewhere in there for the Liberals, but it didn't work the way they expected it because Quebec said, bullshit, you're not touching any kind of language laws whatsoever. It is what it is. There's still always a little attempt to try and make what Quebec's doing illegal. Like, Quebec has, French only laws. And so there's always this group that tries to make that an issue. And in that case, Garneau had to go against the party. And rather than go against the party, he's 72, 73, he retired. And that's the theory, but it's a pretty good one. but so Trudeau was facing all sorts of uphill battles, and there was thoughts of him proroguing, but then he didn't. He threatened to make that vote last week, the one to see if there should be an inquiry. He threatened to make that a confidence vote, which he didn't, and now he's going to face a confidence vote. I don't know if tomorrow if there will be a vote on the budget, but he's kind of facing one. But so I don't know. There's a school of thought that says Trudeau at this point might want to just get defeated and find an exit out of this whole mess, because he's in a giant mess right now. He's and as narcissistic as he is, it's starting to wear thin.
Really?
So mind if I throw thought into here when it comes to the whole Han Dong situation? I think the whole thing proceeded in a series of escalations. At first, Han Dong sees that the special rapporteur is a good friend of Trudeau, and if he knows that he is guilty, the best thing politically for him at that moment would be to support making the investigation as open as possible, so that way he doesn't look guilty in front of everybody when Trudeau's special appointment says, hey,
that's a good point. Yep,
this guy checks out, he's good. Then shortly after that, he got removed from the party, and that, I think, changed his game plan. If you listen to the interview that he gives where he breaks down and starts crying, listen to the words very closely. It sounds as though he's upset with Global for telling a non-truth about the whole situation, but it's the way that he words it almost seems that he conflates the idea that he met the Chinese consulate as being what was wrong and incorrect about it, not particularly that the conversation happened to begin with. And the best political move for him would be to confuse the whole situation by conflating the two together and pushing a legal battle, saying, hey, they lied about me approaching them. In that case, it kind of suits his best interests. And I think that's kind of how that whole situation unfurled.
Yeah, that's an
definitely that definitely has merit. I mean, there are some people that are saying that the Global story was done out of context. I've heard that. I haven't dug into it, but definitely that has merit, Joe. Absolutely.
So I did go over the Global story after I got back, and I dug into it, and I showed it in its entirety on one of my videos, and I laid it out that they said in the story that all of these were allegations. None of this is proven. This is all allegations. Now take that with that what you will. Is that correct journalism? Is that ethical journalism to hear about an allegation, have an anonymous source, and then run with the story? Or would you wait until you have more proof on the subject? So
right,
it is up there.
But then again, yeah, but God, we can keep going down rabbit holes. why would Global? I mean, Global so far is a pro-liberal organization. So what's their incentive to even do this?
I don't know, and it's not for ratings because it got buried anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a tricky one. It didn't work out in their favor at all. It didn't work out, and now
did you see the job posting? They're trying to replace Rachel.
I did. Okay, so
I told the plebe he should apply.
Oh, people kept telling me to apply. I forgot to apply. I was supposed to when I got back, just as a joke. I wouldn't take the job. But yeah, for people listening don't know, Rachel Gilmore, I call her Unhappy Gilmore. She's the TikTok reporter for Global News. It was funny because she got let go. She got laid off pretty much just after TikTok got banned from all government devices. And interesting timing that. But she got let go, and then it was a few weeks later she
Couple of
posted.
weeks. I mean, a job description, a job posting for a social media savvy person, blah blah blah, and
Oh,
showed up.
too good.
Speaking of TikTok, then, so does that mean that if it's off government apps and things like that, does that mean Jagmeet Singh is kind of off his TikTok trend, or is he still TikToking?
Yeah, so he's not TikToking anymore. And in fact, they some at some scrum they asked him, "Are you going to delete it?" And he confirmed he was going to delete it. He looked
Okay.
disappointed about it though. It looked like a sour moment for the guy. I think he really enjoyed that. I think that was, yeah, a
Yeah, you
big.
might have a hard time finding that one, Joe, but
Yeah, I could see you searching. I could see you searching. You won't find it under mine. I'm
yeah,
blocked
yeah.
by Unhappy Gilmore. I
I
commented.
thought you had a screenshot on one of them.
Oh, maybe I did. Maybe I did. It's way down there now at this point. But if you find it, let me know, because yeah, that was just too funny. But why don't we get into, because like, yeah, all this political stuff is happening on the federal level, and it's messy. There's like
Yeah.
all the stuff with the Chinese collusion. There's the 11 MPs, two of which are CPC. Of course, every time I bring it up, someone on Twitter has to tell me, well, the two of them are CPCs, like this whataboutism crap. I don't care. If any of them are compromised, I want to know who they are.
Well, and we're going to move on, but let's also not forget there was a big leak by CSIS, and it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
It
It's a
is
big deal.
it is a huge deal. So I mean, all that's happening, and we'll see where that ends up. But you've been concentrating on Alberta elections and what's going on.
Yep. Yep.
I've been hearing some stuff, and like I guess it's just like on the national level, people splitting the vote. There's with the PPC, they want to split the vote nationally. I hear about other people trying to run against Danielle Smith. That isn't that what Danielle Smith did originally to get Rachel Notley in? Like, fill me in. Is that true, or is that just what I've heard from other
Yeah, it's
people?
it's kind of yeah, it's kind of what accidentally happened. I mean, we had we had 40 years of conservative governments in Alberta. Fair to say that after Ralph Klein, it kind of fell apart. After Ralph Klein was Ed Stelmach, and then somebody whose name I can't remember, Alison Redford, and then Jim Prentice, and so all the conservatives that followed Ralph Klein took it for granted that you know we were always going to vote conservative and they could do the same thing. But we ended up with a bit of a downturn in the economy, back in 2007, 8. And Prentice was not a very popular guy. And then we had this breakaway group, the Wild Rose Party. So we had the conservatives. So back to kind of what's happening today, you had the conservatives that went too far to the center, were spending too much money, and the real conservatives in Alberta formed the alliance, or not the alliance, the Wild Rose Party,
Mm-hmm.
which uh, in the end was going to split the vote, but didn't need to split the vote because the backlash was so bad. And I'm missing a step. So we had the Wild Rose and we had the conservatives, and they were about to split the vote. But Danielle, who was in the Wild Rose Party, actually saw some of that happening, and she also ended up being in one of the elections. Both parties, the conservatives were the government, and the Wild Rose were the opposition, and she claimed that she couldn't do her job as the opposition because she was too aligned with the government. So she thought that the ethical thing was to cross the floor and become. Anyways, it got so ugly that way. So a bit of vote splitting, a bit of fighting on the right, ultra right versus middle, and it all backfired. And on the next, the government didn't last very long. And at the next election, Albertans literally had this reflex vote, and we just punted everybody out, and we elected the NDP under Rachel Notley. It was one of the more bizarre moments of my history. I'll never forget that watching it all unfold. I remember when Danielle crossed the floor and going, "Holy shit, what's going on here?" and thinking we're in trouble and witnessing the trouble. And so the NDP was just a backlash. It had been sitting in the background, and it was just a knee-jerk vote. Everybody voted for them as a message to the conservative, whatever color they happen to be, and so be it. And then Rachel went on. I definitely call the Rachel Notley era, 2015 to 2019 was a reign of errors and terror here in Alberta. She had a lot of very damaging policies, and then and now, which brings us to where we are today. The Conservatives came back roaring under Kenny. I mean, Kenny did a good job. Kenny was one of those unifiers. Just 1 year short of Rachel's end of her term, Kenny came back to Alberta and united the Wild Rose and the Conservatives under the United Conservatives, and he won his election. But then 2 years into poor Jason. I mean, I don't know how I'll feel about Jason Kenney 10 years from now. I honestly, for me, I saw him as opportunistic when he came in, but the pragmatic side of me saw that he was a unifier and he could unite the right. And he had a long track record. I mean, Kenny had never lost any kind of election. So I voted for him, gave him the benefit of the doubt. COVID hit. So I don't think we'll ever know what Kenny could have actually done, because he got burdened with COVID. He was off to a good start at COVID, but he didn't have the Ron DeSantis or the what's the girl from North Dakota or South Dakota. Anyways, he just didn't have that fortitude, and he gave into a little bit too much politics. He played it a little bit too much in the center during COVID. I think his plan was probably, I gotta go with politics no matter what. I have to make political decisions regarding vaccines and mandates and things like that. I have to do what's popular, and that cost him dearly. And now in Alberta, we're still fighting that. We're still it's a nasty battle of ideologies. And so what's happening at the federal level is kind of happening in Alberta. If Danielle Smith is not conservative enough for a lot of people.
Right. And I
So,
keep hearing this. So like she made some promises, and people are accusing her of not keeping some of them, like not throwing away all the fines that people got during COVID. What's the reality of that situation?
well, that's on the news today. So that was one of the big news items today in Alberta. So stepping back, if you remember, she campaigned on that she was going to not be like Kenny and look into what had happened during COVID and so forth and so forth. She got elected, and one of the very first things she did after she got elected was unpopular, but she acknowledged that she basically acknowledged that some of the things that had happened were wrong. At a high level, the mandates were wrong. At a high level, we shouldn't have arrested some of the people. At a high level, the unvaccinated were discriminated against. So she basically said that. But there's a group that was really hoping that she would go further, that the lawsuit, that the fines and lawsuits would be dropped, that there'd be some compensation for the unvaccinated, some real things like that. But her reality is she can't do that, because those decisions were made because they were popular at the time, and they still are popular. It's the reality that and it's also a sensitive topic when you talk about it. There are people who just want to move on past COVID no matter what. So she's stuck between a rock and a hard place on that one. And today, there was one of the celebrities during COVID in Alberta was Pastor Arthur Pizlowski. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah, I do. He was arrested several times for continuing to hold service.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's one of the ones who at first wished her luck and was hopeful that she would drop his lawsuit or what or his trial or interfere in his trial, but she can't. She said it many times. I mean, there was a controversy about that a month ago when the CBC said she was interfering with the courts and everything else, and she wasn't. I mean, she's allowed as a premier to ask the courts, how are things going? Are you winning? Are you losing? Is this costly? Is this valid? What are the appeals like? So she was just doing that, and she continues to do that, but she wasn't. But that didn't make that didn't satisfy Pazlowski. So now, but it's a
So
complicated
he
story.
wants her to have the charges dropped. Is that what he's asking?
Basically, but and on the side, he went and formed his own party. So he formed the Alberta
Well,
Independence
before we get
Party.
onto that, so I want to address
Yeah,
this because like
yeah.
I always try to like shoe on the other foot, put things the other way around, right? So say Rachel Notley got in and there was someone who committed a bunch of crimes that people agree with, pursuing legal action against this person, whether the crimes were legitimate because the rules are good or not. The person did it in protest of the rules, for example, and Notley steps in and extrajudicially just drops all the charges. I mean, wouldn't people be pissed at that?
They would be, but
Is that something
they could
that
be, but they've also
but is that something within their
they
power? And
haven't been.
that's
There's been examples where they were, right. You can, Trudeau basically came in, legalized marijuana, and then many jurisdictions said that, all marijuana convictions, no matter what from the past, were either dropped or pardoned, or so it's possible to do it.
oh, okay, so it is
I mean,
possible. So I mean, I just want to devil's
governments are
advocate
governments,
the
right?
whole
They passed the
situation, right?
yeah, 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 yeah. No, and Danielle, I think maybe naively said that she would look into doing that, and she didn't have the power, and then in hindsight she doesn't, and she's stepping back. So now listen, this is how funny it is, because some guys go, well, the NDP say, well, she shouldn't have even made that promise. Obviously, she doesn't know anything about laws, so she's not fit to govern. I'm like, holy shit. So they're going to attack her for whatever, for whatever reason. But let me get back to Pazlowski real quick. So he formed the Independence Party, and he just got kicked out of his party yesterday. So he was the president of the party, and his own party kicked him out yesterday because they kept asking him same thing. You got to tone it down a little bit. You can't be, brimstone and fire and lightning bolts and damning everybody to hell who isn't extremely pro freedom like you are. So they were asking him to tone it down, and he wouldn't. So they kicked him out. And today, when they kicked him out yesterday. Today, he released a recorded conversation between him and Danielle.
Oh, okay.
And it was just so.
Is there a smoking gun or is it a nothing burger?
No, there isn't. And everybody's trying to make it, but it is literally Danielle Smith. If you listen to it, I've said, I tweeted about it today. It's like, when I listen to it, all I hear is a member of government meeting with one of its constituents and discussing something. She didn't promise him that she'd drop the charges. And she does admit that I talked to lawyers, I talked to courts and judges, and I was like, she's allowed to do that, right? I mean, you pass a law and you want to know how the laws are being prosecuted and the win ratios, and she's allowed to do that. Mm-hmm. So it's a nothing burger, and it's not a gotcha moment, but it shows a lot of things. Now it exposes Arthur for who he is. It's sad that he's doing what he's doing. I mean, he claims to be a man of God and a man of principles. Then he goes and does something like this. And I say the principle that I find offensive is that he was recording conversations and then leaking conversations that the two individuals thought were private. So that's not a man of principle as far as I'm concerned. But that, we can debate that. And then the NDP are just latching onto this, but it's been funny because it's for the NDP, it hasn't scored any points. It's like everybody, in fact, people was like, no, I if I listen to it carefully, I like Danielle more than I did yesterday because of the conversation she's having. Right. She's having conversations.
Because she's having conversations
with constituents.
Why is it though? I see this all over the place, like whether it's the United States politics, provincial politics, federal politics. It seems that the left is always extremely united. They don't care. They have no principles. Just go with the party line, do the thing. But there's all these principled people that disagree with each other so much on the right, and they just have such a hard time just staving off infighting. The infighting is just incredible. It's like herding cats on the right.
That's funny that you'd mention that, because even today, actually, I don't remember the exact context, but I posted a picture the other day that said, "This is Danielle Smith, the future leader of Alberta, and she's a strong woman who scares Trudeau." And and somebody says, "Why'd you have to add the word strong? Why couldn't you just say she's the future leader and why'd you have to add the word strong?" I'm like, dude, it's politics. Like, I'm sorry, but when I talk and I'm doing this, I got to add a little bit of politics because Trudeau's using it. So we got to use some of and so I get criticized for using their same tactics on them. Yeah, you're right. So there's a group of on our side that, well, 2 points back to the PPC. You have to be exactly aligned on everything, which is like, that will never happen. I've said that before. No matter what, if you want to kick me out of the party, you've drawn a line that I'm not willing to. It's interesting that they would draw a line. That's fine. And then, and on the other side, by another subgroup, we get attacked by being not ethical enough in our battles. I'm like, we're going to keep losing if that's the case, because like you said, the Liberals are shameless in some senses. Not just the Liberals. I mean, lots of parties are shameless. It brings, I was asked a question. I remember one time, somebody said, do you think elections are rigged? I'm like, they're not rigged, but they're kind of a game. And to be honest, some of the Conservatives don't know how to play the game. If there's nothing wrong. If you're really playing the game, if you drive around, go to the old age home and throw in 55 seniors in a bus, give them coffee and donuts, do the registrations for them and drive them to the booth and have them vote, that's not unethical. But there is a group, when I talk about that, there's people that go, no, that's totally unethical. I'm like, holy shit. Well, if you keep thinking that way, then. So to the guy who said, why did I add strong woman to the title of Danielle Smith? I'm playing a bit of politics. I'm not, it is a.
Well, you're being descriptive and you're jazzing it up. You're making it jazzy.
Yeah.
Making it sound better.
You know what's funny? I'll share this with you. I'll have to go dig it up, because story for the listeners who might know me. I had a job interview many years ago with a wonderful company called Prime West, and they sent me for about 2 days of these profiling kind of things, and then a guy, I can't remember his name, but wrote a little profile of who is Marty. It's crazy. And then my future boss George sat there, and I sat sort of across from him, and the guy who profiled me said, "Hey George, this is Marty." He didn't even look at me, but he described me. He's like, "This is who you're hiring if you hire Marty." It's fascinating. And I'll find that profile because my mother couldn't have written it that well. And you know what it said in that but what I remember, one of the most things that I had to take away from that, and that was about 15 years ago, the guy said, Marty's not political. Marty is so matter of fact, so ethical, so down the middle, so moral that he cannot do politics, because for Marty, politics is an absolutely dirty word. And so I had to learn about politics, and politics, what I was taught at that point is it's norms. It's just rules of engagement is another name for politics, is norms. And the guy's like, they sent me on training where I had to learn that it's not a dirty word. It's just a fact of life, and it is how things get accomplished. You need politics. And so I learned to do politics. So maybe I learned it too well, because I became at some point I became political. Because years ago, I wouldn't have said Danielle Smith is a strong woman just to emphasize the statement. I would have said, she's I would have been like Sheldon on Big Bang Theory. I would have said Danielle is a woman with an IQ of 164.
Fair enough.
And Trudeau is a man with an IQ of 72. So you do the conclusion.
Well, I find myself doing that a lot, because I do videos every morning, and I have to make them interesting, and you jazz up your language, you make it more interesting, you tell a story, you're not just matter of fact, here's the facts, you put all the facts together, and then you tell a story of what's happening in contemporary
Well, it's like
Canada.
the story I told last week. Did you see the story where I told about the complaint I got?
No, no, tell me.
Oh, it was a funny one. So I got a professional complaint against me through my association, and it got
Oh, okay.
dismissed because
I briefly saw the tweet, but like
yeah, yeah. But
you.
I'm not gonna go out there and say, hey, my association complained against me. So I made it funny. And I said, hey, to whoever sent the complaint to Plan B Engineering, because that's my company, right? Because in the comments, literally when my association got the complaint, it is addressed to Plan B because I have a permit to practice and a registered company. So uh it was officially addressed to Martin, but when the mail comes, it's also addressed to Plan B Engineering. So I loosened a bit. I fudged a little bit what happened, but I said to whoever sent the complaint to Plan B, thank you very much. I'm the president of Plan B, and I'll be sure to address your complaint. Which is at first it scared me because I was like, oh shit, am I in the same boat now as Jordan Peterson? And the guy told me no, it happens all the time. People are he said he gets my association gets hundreds of complaints from other people just like that. People complain all the time. All the time. You
Just
say something that's offensive, they'll complain. It had nothing to do with the practice of engineering. Nothing.
I've been surprised actually at how little complaints I get. When I started doing politics on YouTube, I talked to the owner of the shop that I work at before I did it, and I said, "Hey, are you
Yeah.
okay with me? Would you be okay if I gave my opinion about politics on the internet?" He said, "Yeah, whatever. Who cares?" I said, "Do you
Yeah.
understand how the internet works?" He's like, "No, tell me." I said, "Well, sometimes people get mad at your opinion and they'll end up like bombarding your shop with calls or call up your business, flood the emails, all this stuff." And he said, "Well, you know who answers the phone," which is one of the guys that I work with, and he takes no nonsense. So he's like, "Yeah, do what you got to do."
Yeah. No, but and I'm in the same boat. I mean, but not anymore. I'm semi-retired now, and I generally run my own company. But I've been doing this for a decade. So even with YouTube, long ago, I would tell the people I work for because, well, you have to. I mean, when I worked for
Oh yeah,
bigger companies like TransCanada, for instance, they had media policies back then. I imagine some of the companies today have very very rigorous social media policies.
I'd imagine. Yeah.
But you can't. Yeah, yeah, that was a funny one. Actually, there was something
I'll
else I
tell
was
you
going to
what.
say about that
If
one.
I
Sorry.
if I apply for a job and it's got pronouns in the application, I'm not taking the job. I'm just not doing it. Just anyone who kowtows to this new thing, it feels like a danger for me. It's kind of like a potential employee gives you um a resume or a CV, and it's full of wokeism stuff. It's just gonna end up on the bottom of the pile. Like it's just not you're
Dude,
not
like,
even getting
wow,
considered.
everything that happened last week, right? Not to me, but that was on the internet last week because there was an article published that said people who put pronouns on their resume are less likely to be employed. And it was researched and it was on the internet and people talked about it. It's like it is what it is. I mean,
Well, you just
it
look like a problem employee. It sounds like, oh, okay, you're the type of person to have lots of grievances. We don't need that.
totally.
We want people who are
No,
gonna get along.
but that's another example. What I say to people that we've regressed, we've eliminated years of social progress, and now we're actually going backwards. And we're going to segue into the NHL in a second. But yeah, I could not ask you about your marital status, but I could find out if you had a ring, and I can't ask you about your health, and I couldn't ask you all sorts of questions. But now it seems that if I can ask you about your pronouns, boy, trust me, I can start asking you a lot of questions. You're defeating the those groups are defeating their own progress. I mean, they didn't want us to discriminate on them based on their sex. So they were at the point where, like, I work for, I'll say it, I work for TransCanada. When I was the hiring manager for TransCanada, they took this so seriously that they would give me the resumes of people, and they would erase their names and all sorts of information and give me a scrub down resume, because they were scared shitless that I might accidentally discriminate. So they would try and eliminate every
Oh,
possibility of me discriminating. And I'm like, now you're reversing that, because the same guy who didn't want me to discriminate against him now wants to be certain that I know his pronouns or whatever, he, she. Well, it's a weird step. Oh yeah, that's how it was recruiting, man. Like, and I don't do it anymore, but like I said, I can figure out a lot of things about somebody looking at your resume. I mean, I worked in the UK. In the UK, I couldn't even write a job description that says must have 10 years of experience. And I'm like, well, no, it's just a general guideline. I want a guy with 5 to 10 years of experience. They'd be like, well, you said guy, then you said 5 to 10 years of experience. You can't do that, because what if somebody has less experience than that but are qualified to do the job? I'm like, holy smokes. Okay, that's fine. Let's write it your way. But trust me, when the guy comes in, we're wasting each other's time if he doesn't have the experience, because I'm gathering some information from that question. And if he's wasting my time, I'll figure out if you have 5 to 10 years of experience when you come into my office.
yeah,
It's gone too far.
that's pretty easy. Now it's funny because there was
Yeah.
a study a while ago. It was a pretty controversial one, that a lot of people would cite on the internet and say, I wish I knew the study offhand, but it was a study that said that people with black sounding names or ethnic sounding names didn't get callbacks as much as people who had white sounding names. So I looked into the background of the study, and I looked into, like, okay, well, how was it actually done? What were the metrics of it? And how was it peer reviewed? Any of this stuff. So it turns out it wasn't peer reviewed at all. It was, the metrics were a tiny sample, and the only names that they had, that were ethnic or whatever, that they claimed were ethnic names, they also had attached to them on their resumes that they were activists, like socialist activists in their university. And for me, like, that's a red flag. Like, when you're running a business, you have people that are involved in, like, union organizing and things like that. You don't want in your business. Like, you build up a business only to have a union come in and destroy it. And that's the reality of it. Like, and I've seen a bunch of 3-letter construction companies in the Lower Mainland. Same thing happened. They get enough employees, and then the employees organize, form a union, the place goes bust. Like, you just can't operate. It won't. So
Totally.
So you avoid at all costs. So it turns out, in my opinion, in my estimate, the study, they looked at the data incorrectly. Had they looked at the data from the lens of an employer, looking at what your experience is and what type of person you are, that's probably what got you the calls back or not getting a call back. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, and so now we're going to segue into, I want to talk about the NHL a little bit, but there was a hashtag last week. I'm just writing it down. So it's LGBT, and then it got to be LGBTQ and A and S and Lord knows what else. And
well, it started off as LGB. There was no T in it
Sure.
in the beginning,
and now it's back to LGB. I mean, there was a tag this week, LGB minus the T or whatever.
Yeah, without the T.
And because it did go too far. We all know people like, whether it's the NHL or whether it's the drag show, story time at the library, there are legitimate people who fought battles, whether it was feminists or gays or whatever, to get some recognition. Like I've always said, that battles that were fought for 30 years, that suddenly it seems like in the last 4 or 5 years, some of those things have been thrown backwards rapidly, and they're losing ground. And that's an example. I think the LGBT LGB community wants nothing to do right now with what's going on with the trans and some of the other ones, and I think that spilled over into the NHL this week. I don't know if Vancouver had a pride game, but Edmonton had a pride game and Calgary had one, and now I've heard that the NHL, Bettman's kind of saying we're going to cancel this insanity because
That's probably a good bet.
nobody's winning out of this. Like nobody's winning. In fact, I'd say everybody's losing instead of having any winners. It's just losers. It's crazy.
Well, see, in my estimate, there's nothing to say in the NHL. There's no discrimination to say that gay, lesbian, bisexual, or even transgender people are not allowed to play in that league.
There never was. There absolutely, I agree.
So I mean, like having a pride event,
you can't look at the demographics of the sport and say that the sport was discriminating against that segment just because they're not in that sport. I mean, holy smokes, it's the NHL is an example. I mean, there's only a certain kind of person that likes to play hockey, and it's not that it's not. It could be all inclusive all at once. It was irrelevant because the gays and lesbians, I guess, didn't want to play hockey, but if they wanted to, they're more than welcome to.
Yeah, totally.
I think we made something out of nothing out of it. But
well, it is a nothing story, and then it turns into this thing where they have to have a show about it. So it has to be this big showing with the rainbow flags and all this other stuff. But that now so there was a story, I can't remember. I think it was the Toronto Sun, and I even tweeted out and said, when did the Toronto Sun become the Toronto Star? Because it was Toronto Sun in favor and saying that not doing the pride thing is it's excluding people. And no, but the reality of it is by doing an exclusive thing like pride, you're excluding everybody else.
Totally.
In that action, you're excluding everybody else. You're telling people who have religious conviction against that they can't participate in this thing. People who maybe just don't agree with it. Maybe like everyone should be able to make up their own decisions.
Again, yes, there's so much to unpack there. I mean, and that's why I love Twitter. I do love Twitter because you get an instant feedback on an idea. You can put an idea there and then you can get some really good feedback. Fine, there's a pride game, and then somebody says, well, what's wrong with are you okay with having a pink ribbon day in support of cancer? And then you start thinking, it's like, I'm sure there's a difference between promoting pride and promoting cancer, and so that's an example. And it's like, or then should I also have a happy Jewish day where we all wear a yellow star on our jerseys to promote they're for every attempt to do something positive, it creates a negative, and that's an example. Like
it's exclusivity.
In an effort to be non-discriminatory, you discriminate against another group, and that's not valid. So let's just forget this whole thing.
Yeah, well, the idea of being inclusive would not be to single out any particular groups. It would be to say that everybody's welcome, no matter what. And this whole concept is counter to that exact idea. And especially in a contentious time right now, especially with the T plus side of things, let's just say. So most people in Canada, I don't know anybody who thinks that gay people or lesbian, bisexuals shouldn't be able to do their life and be themselves. That's not even an argument. Nobody's having that argument. Of course, that's how they gaslight people and say, like, people are this or whatever. And people aren't even saying that about transgender people. People aren't saying that transgender people shouldn't be able to exist or be themselves or what they want to be. Be you. That's fine. Whatever. Who cares? The only contention is the fact that they're trying to push it on kids at the moment, and that's where a lot of people are upset.
No, that's a great thing done. That's a great thing. So let's go back to the gays and lesbians. I remember, I mean, originally Yeah, there was, when somebody was gay or lesbian and they wanted the exact same privilege as a married person, I remember that there was resistance there, right?
Hmm.
Because somebody say, why are you giving that couple a benefit? It's like, well, we give all couples a benefit because it benefits society to have couples. So afterwards, I was like, okay, yes. So gays and lesbians should have a benefit because they're a couple. Then it went a little bit too far because they're like, well, we also want to be called married. So I was like, holy shit, man. We accommodated your original request. Now you want something else. That's where I was like, you're a couple and I'm not going to call it married. Married to me is a man and a woman and you guys are something else. But even then I gave up. So there's an accommodation, but and there's a reasonable accommodation, but at some point it gets too far. So then when we get back to the trans, I'm like, what was the benefit that you wanted that you couldn't get otherwise? Like, was it a tax benefit? No. Was it a legal benefit offered to another sector? No. You just wanted to play in sports in a league that I couldn't understand. I still don't understand what they want or what perceived what's the word, harm or damage they have for being trans. So I still don't know, but I'll say it's more than the damage they're doing to the kids. They actually started imposing things on the rest of us that at some point made no sense.
Mm.
So now for me, for the trans, I'm like, you just want to use our bathrooms? Like, that's crazy. Like, fuck, man. I'm not gonna, like, if that's what this battle is all about, it's nonsense. And so but it helped me out there. Maybe I'm missing something, but what is
So, well,
what do they
to
want?
get back, right, to get back to the concessions on the whole gay marriage thing, I always looked
Yeah.
at it from a libertarian sort of perspective. Why is government involved in marriage anyway? That
Right.
shouldn't be a thing. Okay, you have civil unions, sure, and people get tax benefits for being couples. Cool, government can do that, but don't step in. I think marriage has always been a religious institution thing, and that's not government's purview. They shouldn't be involved in there. And if a church wants to marry gay people, let them. If a church
Yep.
doesn't want to marry gay people, well, you're just not going to have those people patronizing your church. That's the way I looked at it. And that's fair. That's what a fair, free, and open society would do in that scenario. Government should just get out of the job of marrying people. It was just to track people's health. It was a healthcare thing. On your marriage license, it says like Health Canada or
Yeah.
something like that. Now, when it comes to these extra, well, injustices that they claim, the claims of injustice, they just don't fly.
That's the word. Yeah.
They
Right.
just don't fly.
Right.
I agree with you there completely. They just don't fly. But it's where I think people get these ideas, and the ideas that come from postmodernism and Marxism is these positive rights as opposed to negative rights. Like a negative right would be the type of right that, somebody can't infringe upon you for, whatever. You have the right to your property, and that can't be infringed unless, the state does it for whatever reason, and even that should be limited, extremely limited. Our government, it doesn't. It's far too liberal with that.
Doesn't go around expropriating people. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, exactly. So, negative rights are the idea that you're free to your life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and nobody shall infringe on that. Right. Positive rights are this idea that comes about from Marxism or socialist thinking, where you should be entitled to some sort of service, like healthcare, for example. A lot of people think healthcare is a right, but when you get down to the nitty gritty and the philosophy behind it, you have to actually infringe on somebody else's right in order to give that person the right that they have. So it ends up becoming, at some point, you find yourself in a moral conundrum, right? So at some point, say a doctor doesn't want to provide a service, you have to compel them to do that. Like that infringes on their rights to free association. So these types of things. Now, what's happening in the trans community is we've gone too far, where the idea of these positive rights, like the right to be able to use a washroom, Well, that should be up to the individual who owns the property, but the government has already gotten in the habit of getting involved in people's property and how they operate their own business and things like that. And what has it led to? It's led to people just taking action into their own hands and saying, okay, well, we have unisex bathrooms and it's one person only. Like, because people just don't want the trouble, right? So, restaurants will, they used to have men's washroom, women's washroom. Now it's just everybody free for all washrooms. Use the one that you feel like if the door is
Yeah,
open.
and then I like what she said, and now I'm thinking about it, and then we're also suddenly conflating, I guess, rights and privileges and services, right? Like you said, I mean, is a
Mhm.
bathroom a right or is a service? And the right to play in any league that I choose. I want to play against women instead of men, and so yeah, we had these rights or these privileges or these norms that are being torn apart. So yeah, that's
Well,
I've
and you end up in circular
go ahead.
arguments with the sports thing. So you
Right,
have
right.
what is a woman, the whole that because that went viral with the Matt Walsh movie and all that stuff. But people will claim that a trans person, or they say that gender is fluid. You could be on a spectrum. It's not binary. It's not one or the other. But trans people are the personification of exactly the opposite of that thought process. What do trans people do? They transition from one to the other in a binary
Let's
fashion.
move
And
on to another topic. This is not a topic I like.
okay, we'll go away from that one. But it's complicated,
Go
and
ahead.
there's a lot of
Yeah, it
emotions that
is.
fly around with that one, and people get really upset about about that entirely. But yeah, I think when it comes down to rights and people having the rights to do things, sorry, rights in society. I'm a big proponent of negative rights over positive rights, and this is where this is the philosophy that I have that leads me to the ideas that I have when it comes to socialized medicine. The government just granted what is it, dental now, because they've been doing such a
Oh,
good job at taking care of our healthcare that now they're going to take care of dental. So that's
well, it's a campaign promise by the Notley government for this campaign here in Alberta. Notley's offering free contraceptive to women, so I'm sure somebody's going to complain about that. I mean, I don't know but well, again, there's so much to unpack there, but it feels weird to me that a campaign issue in 2023 would be whether the government should be offering contraceptive. I'm going to, the libertarian in me says, fuck that. Sorry for swearing, but the, it is not the government's business to be providing contraceptives to its citizens. Please, we have bigger problems to solve,
I
I
agree
think.
with you, but where I stand on this is I think that it's a political ploy to get people outraged, because
Totally.
and here's why. Contraceptives are so damn cheap. They're not even worth talking about in the course of
Cheaper
like
than ivermectin.
yeah. So, well, I mean, much more readily available, that's for sure. So,
Yeah.
but that's the thing. So, like, it's not even a real conversation piece. I mean, if people were happily and healthily employed, gainfully employed, why would they even need the government to pay for the contraceptives? So it's a political tool to get the right to freak out, and the right buys into it a lot. They'll take
Yeah.
that one.
Actually, this is listen to Jordan Peterson talk about this subject. I listened to it. It's been a long time, but I remember Peterson talking about the fact he described contraceptive as one of the most amazing developments in human history, and it probably is, right?
Yeah.
Because humans, I mean, it was a risky thing to have sex for 14 million years, and then finally it became something different. But he still says that in the context of humanity, contraceptives have been around for 50 years, and humans have been around for about 11 million years, and he equates a shit ton of problems that we currently have to the fact that we haven't figured out life post contraceptive. and
Yeah.
that, you know, the humans had evolved with the fact that women could get pregnant accidentally explains marriage, explains all sorts of norms that we had, and they all went out the window when the contraceptives come. And he says that one of the things right now that humans are guilty of is we're not even talking about the problem. Like, if we actually talked about the problem, then perhaps we could get somewhere. It's an interesting, find that video if you haven't heard it. But when God, he's a brilliant man. He's a
Well,
brilliant
I
man.
think there's a lot of animosity between the sexes in Western civilization at the moment. So there's this whole concept of, and I'm sure you've heard of it, toxic masculinity, as if anything masculine is toxic and it should be thrown out and we should never have these things. When it turns out, child rearing, for example, you should have elements of both in every child's life. They should have a masculine and a feminine role model in their lives, and this is how people develop to be full and fruitful people, by having these figures in their lives, and learning lessons from that. It's when you
both. Yeah.
it's when you mess, and I mean, like, you know, even the hippy dippy people with the yin yangs and all that stuff. It's a balance. It's a balance of all things. And to throw masculinity out there as being this awful thing that you can't have in your life, and then just and rely on what femininity, as if there's no such thing as toxic femininity. I mean, we all know what toxic femininity is like. We have a word for it in the English, well, in contemporary language. It's called a Karen, and we all know what that's.
Which is my wife's name.
Oh, too funny. But that's what everybody knows what that is. But people are afraid to talk about it because, you know, you can get canceled for saying stuff like this. But I think that what people view as toxic in men is not actually toxic. There's a lot of things, and like I work in a shop, and I've always worked around tradesmen, worked with my hands, and what a lot of people would call toxic is actually like a clever dance. It's a clever play that men do with when it comes to socializing with each other. And you rib each other, and you torment each other, and you say mean stuff to each other, and it's all a way of building character in the end. And it's a way of testing each other, because in the trades, oftentimes you end up finding yourself in very stressful situations. So when it's not stressful, you're almost goading each other to see how each other can handle the stress.
My wife's witnessed that in our household. I mean, I have 3 sons, and then I hang out with a bunch of males, and she's witnessed that, and she's always shocked by it. And I'm like, honey, it's just the way it is. You know, I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, if I'm playing hockey and George lets a goal in, we don't come over and tap him on the shoulder and say, it's okay, George, you'll get the next one. No, we rib the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Like, you know, way to go, George. Like, really? Like, you know.
You let another one in?
Oh,
okay. How about another one?
Yeah, and she'll be like, why do you guys do that to each other? I'm like, it's part of the learning. It's how we are. Actually, it'd be fascinating. Peterson would probably be able to talk about this. You know, do little baby gorilla females interact with each other differently than little baby male gorillas? Because I know in the animal kingdom, like, for instance, you watch puppies, you know, little puppies just test each other and do that. A lot of species do that.
Well, he did talk about mice.
I only have one girl.
So he did talk about mice, and one thing that mice do is they play with each other. Yeah. And he talked about them studying the behaviors between a big mouse and a little mouse. And there's actually a tit for tat sort of relationship with them when they're playing. If the big mouse dominates and wins all the time, eventually the small mouse just stops playing with the big mouse. It won't engage anymore. And so the big mouse has to learn to allow the small one to win every once in a while. But keep it a challenge. And that's a play that takes place. And it's an interesting dynamic. And you see it a lot with humans. We do the same thing. But we have different social innate things that we do between men or between women. I mean, women have their own social cues and ways that they behave, and it's different. It's difficult because we've come to a time now where men and women are engaging in the workforce where that didn't used to be a thing.
Yeah, I see Joe's looking up something. The other study that I can't remember the name of it, but did you ever read up on the study where they put like 100 mice in a colony, and they gave that colony everything it needed? Like the colony had food
I
in
did.
abundance, space in abundance, and no matter how many times they repeat the experiment, the colony collapses on itself because it basically, I think, broadly speaking, the conclusion is that mice and creatures in general need a purpose in life, and if everything's just given to you and you have no purpose, then all sorts of weird things happen.
Yeah,
Behavioral sync.
utopia
Yeah,
utopia
pull
is
this up.
not a good thing for humanity or any creatures.
No,
So
not you.
this is known as the behavioral sink. There's a number of studies where they've done it, and essentially, summarizing the article from what I remember from it, it goes over and says when there were no more obstacles or friction within these rats' lives, they developed a new class of rats that spent their time preening and socializing and making themselves look good, and eventually their fertility rates dropped and they all
Dropped,
kind of
right?
started dying off. It's pretty interesting how diverged from humanity they are, yet those same behaviors can be found.
Here's a talk. There's a reality series right there. I mean,
It's
I keep watching these
terrifying.
weird reality series on that are filmed on Vancouver Island. We're going to put 100 people on Vancouver Island and then give them all the salmon and all the food they can swallow and see what happens to them after a month. Yeah, man.
Wasn't that how things were before the white man came to North America though? It was beautiful, and it was just salmon flowing, and everybody had buffaloes, and there was no hard times here.
No,
That's what I
no.
learned in school anyway.
The odd winter, but that's it.
The odd winter. But yeah, no, it's an
God, we
interesting
had tough
thing.
ancestors, eh?
Oh man, yeah, they were tough everywhere, everybody.
Totally.
Like,
Yeah.
just imagine surviving, brutal winters with no technology, like just nothing that none of our modern
I mean,
amenities.
not to brag too much, but yeah, I'm pretty tough. I mean, I like some of my hobbies are pretty tough, and I remember a couple years ago, a friend of mine asked if he could bring one of his friends on one of our hikes, and that poor guy at the end of our first day of the hike, he literally came to me. He's like, "Man, that is the hardest thing I've ever done." And we were going to do a 5-day hike. Guy's name was Brendo. I'm like, Brendo, if this is number one this week, you're going to hit number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 because this is nothing. We're soft as humans. We are very soft, which
Yeah.
now we could segue into a whole other topic, which seemed to make the news this week in the last month or so. And I saw, oh, actually now it's chickens instead of, but the 15-minute cities. Did you see? Oh my God, who's that independent MP from Ontario? Hillier, Randy Hillier. So
Oh
I don't know if
yes.
you guys I don't know if in British Columbia you're talking about 15-minute cities, but we're talking about 15-minute cities here in Alberta. And back to my youth and comfort and things like that. I lived in Fox Creek for 8 years, which is a town of 2,000 people. And I told people, you want to know what a comfort city or a 15-minute city looks like? Come to Fox Creek. You won't last 3 weeks in Fox Creek because you won't have your latte. Your 15-minute city, I guarantee you there's going to be something missing in your 15-minute city. But then now I want to segue, because if you can find Randy Hillier's explanation of a 15-minute city when he walks into his chicken coop, now I put it that segues from the mice. It's so, wow, we're doing a really cool
We are doing
roundabout
it.
today, but
So, well, I was
Rand,
thinking about Vancouver because you said I don't know if you have those out there. there's no way with the way the roads are laid out in Vancouver you could get anywhere in 15 minutes. Let's just say that there's nothing to get. But yeah, Randy Hiller, I did watch the video and he lays it out and he says, come on in, I'll show you a 15-minute city. There's all these, here are all the chickens, they're having a great time. And
they each have a little house, they have food,
but I just take the produce
and they're afraid to go.
And they produce everything and I just take it from them. And they have everything they need.
We've seen it, and we'll just mention it out loud. Tell your viewers.
Yeah,
we'll find Randy Hillier, and then that was God. It's all segueing now. Now you're living back my month while you were gone, because I did a meme, because Randy's an independent MP,
right? And
I did a meme where I wondered, should we have more independent MPs? And I put that out as a discussion point because I think having independent MPs, a lot more of them, or maybe all of them, would solve a lot of the problems we currently have. Because last week we saw partisanship in politics. Last week, we always see it, but last week it seemed particularly bad. And so Randy is an independent, and I think some of the independents have a lot of power as independents. And there are jurisdictions like Nunavut and places like that where they're all independent.
How do you get to be an independent without being like, labeled as a wacko or, a kooky far right they like to throw out there, just whatever they want to throw out there?
It's a label that you'd have to defend with you'd have to defend it with your performance and some of your ideas, I suppose. I mean, it's an unfortunate label, but we have some very wasn't Jody Wilson-Raybould, did she run again as an independent? Did she get defeated as an independent?
I don't know if she did, but I'm looking forward to.
Became an independent.
I've been hearing about her book and some of the excerpts from it, and I'm looking forward to reading it.
Yeah.
Because
she became an independent, and I think she ran again as an independent, but I don't know if she got elected or former. What is she now?
Well, I think that's where people they kind of shy away from being an independent, because you're much more likely to get elected if you got that party name.
Scroll right down to the bottom, Joe, to where there. Whoops, right there. Last election. Next one. Just go to the election results. They right there. In 2019, she ran as an independent and got elected. So she's currently sitting as an independent.
Nice. Congratulations to her.
Unless she resigned since, but that's what that tells me. So there have been some high profile individuals who, you could not accuse Jody Raybould of being a wacko. There's no way,
No.
So it's
and I'm glad she's not a liberal anymore, because I don't feel like she's fitting of the Liberal Party. She's got way more integrity.
She's a strong Native woman.
No, she's just got integrity, straight up. I don't care about ethnicity or any of these things. None of that stuff matters to me.
I'm making my own joke of using the
word course, strong. Of course.
She's definitely the definition of strong. So
for sure.
She resigned.
Oh, she's resigned.
Yeah, it looks like she's resigned September 20th, 2021.
Oh, well, that's
succeeded by Talib.
Probably her book and everything else, but it proved that you can run as an independent. She won but it is difficult because you just don't have the budgets and you don't have the support from Parliament. And hey, maybe Max Bernier should run as an independent and finally win his seat. Sorry, bros. Just had to put it out there.
Sorry,
bros.
Attack
me tomorrow. I'll pay for it. Yeah, I'll pay for it.
You'll hear about it. Well, this will go out tomorrow evening, so you'll hear about it the next day.
On the record, yes, I do like some of Max's ideas. On the record, absolutely, he has good ideas. I wish some of his ideas would be adopted more by the conservative and vice versa, but pragmatically speaking, in the current system, he's got an uphill battle, and I'm not splitting my vote for that battle. Not this time.
Yeah, I find it unfortunate that the Conservative Party of Canada is like just a little left of center. I mean, they're not even a right-wing party. You're not getting the opposite side of things. There's left, like just left of center, lefter, and the leftist parties in Canada. You don't really have a right-wing party other than the PPC, and they don't have any seats. That's kind of where it feels for me. And I feel like if you got rid of the really right wing people from supporting the CPC, the Conservative Party, they're just gonna go lefter.
What are you looking for, Joe?
Oh, Joe's doing searching.
I haven't found it yet, but there was a political cartoon showing Jagmeet, Trudeau, I think it was O'Toole at the time, and Maxime, all kind of on the political spectrum. Um, O'Toole's like left of center, and Max is like hanging out all by himself, going, "Hey guys, I'm over here."
Well, I
I
got in
can't
a
find
lot
it
of
right
shit
now.
for if you go back. I don't know if you how you find it in my timeline, but if you go, I don't know, Marty Up North, Maxime, something. I created a meme 2 weeks ago that got me that got got the PPC a little enraged because I did do a timeline because Max had said something silly like how he compared China and saying we weren't as they weren't as pro freedom as he'd like them to be, and then I added Trudeau's comments. But anyways, when I was starting to think about it, I was like, holy shit, this is ridiculous because we got one guy. The way they're positioning themselves, they're both positioning themselves on the left of the China or the right of the Chinese party, and Max is trying to put himself further to the left. I was like, this makes no sense. But anyways, let's not keep aggravating the PPC guys.
Well, so I don't want to aggravate the PPC guys. I always thought it would be a good strategy if the PPC would try to run in NDP areas, or say for example, an NDP rich area where they're all disaffected as of now. And I keep saying this. I believe that the NDP has two demographics of voters. They have people who are NDP supporters. They support the party line, what all the stuff, unions and all of that traditional NDP stuff. And then you have disaffected liberals. People are completely disaffected by the Liberal Party and they want to throw their vote somewhere else, but they'll never vote Conservative. And you have these demographics in these pockets of the country where you have ridings where they will never, ever, ever vote for a Conservative Party. So why not brand your PPC party to be the alternative to the NDP? Like an actual
Right.
people's party for workers and people's rights and all this other stuff, and win it that way instead of trying to split the vote in conservative ridings.
And BC better than me. There could be a riding like that in BC, but I think there's definitely ridings like that in northern Manitoba, northern Ontario, where people vote NDP, but they are, like you said, they're strong union kind of people, workers or whatever, who could be drawn to the PPC. My riding here, close to Calgary, was a bizarre riding last election because I had Derek Sloan came here. Do you remember Derek Sloan? He was another one of the all the guys who ran for the Conservative Party and failed to win the leadership. So Max Bernier, Derek Sloan, and there was one more came to run here because for an opposite strategy. They felt, I swear, they felt that this riding was so conservative that it couldn't be flipped to any other party, and so they all came here. It made no sense as a strategy, but so we ended up with, I got in trouble. That's another funny one. So we ended up with 8 names on the ballot. I guess perhaps they could, now that I say it was a bad strategy, it could have been a good strategy because you put 5 conservatives in a riding and they could split the vote. If you have 8 candidates, I guess 12% could get you first past the post. I actually took a picture of my ballot. I put it on Twitter, and I got a letter from Elections Canada a month later and a slap on the wrist. And that's when I went, holy shit, they obviously know, from the ballot, they knew it was me. I still to this day can't figure out how they knew who I was and where my address was from that picture on Twitter. They
Wow.
had to use some powers and either compel Twitter to provide an address or Google or something, but they got my address, or there's a relationship to, or they found my ballot out of the out of the box and figured out who had because our ballots do have a number, right? So even though there is an audit trail for a ballot if necessary. So I think they went into the box afterwards when they saw the picture, found the ballot, and then figured out who it was and sent me a letter. I posted that letter last year.
Wow.
It scared the shit out of me. Yeah.
That's something else. That means they're actually keeping track of this stuff. 'Cause, I mean, there's all these theories.
I got letters like.
There's all these theories of non-Canadians actually registering and voting in Canadian elections, and I'm.
No, and again, that's the kind of shit that I love to do on Twitter, right? I mean, do you remember when I posted? I think it's almost a year ago now. I'm doing my taxes, but remember last year when I posted that letter I got from Revenue Canada for the 1 cent credit?
Yeah,
that was another bizarre one. Like, and I followed up on that one, and the theory, I think the most valid theory is, yeah, I did not qualify for a GST rebate. God, I make 6 figures, but I got a letter saying I had qualified for a 1 cent GST rebate, and then it had been debited 1 cent. So I got a letter saying my GST account was 0. I'm like, this is bizarre. Why would they do that? And I'm not the only one to whom it happened. And somebody says they do that because now you count as one of the whatever millions of families lifted out of poverty by the Trudeau Liberal.
Oh, no. Oh, that's cynical, but it sounds true. It sounds legit.
No, I posted that letter. I'm like, this is absolutely ridiculous. And I posted the letter. It's on Twitter. You can find it. I put it on Facebook, and I have all sorts of stories like that. I mean, I am that guy. I mean, this is a letter, I was saying I was critical of Danielle. That's the health minister of Alberta. I write letters, I complain, I bitch, and I get to the bottom. And sometimes I'm completely impartial. If I just see something bullshit, I'm just going to call it out.
Well, I think this is the pressure that politicians need on them. They need to hear this feedback, because if they hear nothing, they'll just whatever. It's just business as usual, until they get some sort of feedback.
Well, that's why that's why I called that lady, whatever, Jen McConnell or whatever O'Connell, in Pickering, Ontario. Where's Pickering? I mean, it's Lake Ontario somewhere or something like that. And I left her a message. I'm like, I'm not in your constituency. I'm not in your writing. I'm Marty Up North from Alberta. But I said, trust me, I have 40,000 followers, and what you did in the House of Commons today is absolutely bullshit. And I'm going to call you out for the next, as long as it takes. And all I want to do is, if you lose 100 votes, that could flip you the other way. That's all I'm going to do. And somebody, and that's how we win some of these battles. We can flip them by 100 votes is 200 votes, right? Because it's 100 that goes the other way. So you can scare them into acting once in a while, especially around the election time. I mean, we're seeing it. Some of the NDP MPs in British Columbia, it was interesting to see them against the gun grab. And inevitably, I know what happened. I mean, there's a lot of hunters and a lot of gun owners in British Columbia. And it doesn't matter if you're an NDP guy and you want to toe the party line. Eventually, if you have enough constituents that call you and say, this is bullshit and I'm not voting for you next time. If 300 guys call somebody in whatever, in Prince Rupert and say, we're not voting for you, that guy's going to change his mind. We saw it. It was surprising the number of NDP MPs who came out against the gun grab.
Yeah.
I mean, that whole gun grab's a fiasco for Trudeau. That's another one.
That was slimy what they tried to pull there, because they said, okay, well, this is going to be about handguns. It's not about any rifles or any of this other stuff. And then at the 23rd hour, whatever, they say, oh, here's another amendment to the bill, and we don't want to debate it. We're just going to throw it in there. And the amendment was bigger than the bill itself. I think it was like 40-something pages, the bill, and the amendment was like 200 pages. Something ridiculous like that.
And I mean, part of me says, oh God, let him pass it, because it is so unmanageable that it's not going to end up to anything anyways. It's like the Liberals look like they don't even know how to make legislation at this point. Like, have they done anything? No, they keep doing little things. I mean, the gun grab's another one. It was in a budget today. They still talk about it in the budget, and they're still implementing it. And now they're going to put, I don't know, $20 million for software on how to okay, let's change topics.
There was one win today. Okay, here's a new topic. There was one win today. Farmers got the right to have the the carbon tax lifted off of them.
An exemption. Yes. Thank you. Finally.
Now, we
That's a
should
good
get rid of
one.
the carbon tax for everybody else as well. But I mean, okay, here are the implications of the carbon tax on farmers. They want us to be more conscious of the environment. This is the whole purpose, correct? This is what they say.
Yeah.
But how does that make it more conscious? Or how do you make it, the average person more cautious about the environment and global warming, whether you believe it in or not, or you think it's a bunch of malarkey? But carbon dioxide going into the atmosphere. So what do? You tax the carbon, and then it makes food, local food, more expensive. So you end up having to buy groceries that are shipped in from the United States, where they're made cheaper because they don't have carbon taxes on their farmers. Like, that's just ass backwards in my opinion, and I think it's the reason why they actually made a reversal on this.
Totally. Well, that and maybe your cousins in Holland had a great victory. The farmers in Holland had a great victory in the last 2 weeks, right? I mean, they had an election, and they, a fringe party got elected, so that's good. But back to your original thing, yes, that makes sense, and it should be reversed. But the government's not that practical. I mean, even showing to the government that something makes absolutely no sense, they're still going to go ahead and do it.
Okay, that's fair.
So that's fair. But I like when somebody digs enough. Last week somebody found a really cool one. A follower of mine, I can't remember who, and I'd have to go look at it. But there was a law. I think it was Ontario or one of the provinces said that beer stores won't be allowed to refrigerate beer. So they have to, because to save money, they're going to put a restriction on, make the fridges colder. And a guy who studies thermodynamics and air conditioning and all that stuff said that's nonsense, because he said literally the industrial fridge is better at refrigerating. So they refrigerate the beer more efficiently, and then you take it home and it stays cold, and you put it in your little fridge and it stays cold. He's like, by doing what the government did, it actually is counterproductive, because now the beer will be warm when you buy it, but instead of being refrigerated in an industrial fridge, it'll be refrigerated in everybody's homes less efficiently. And so the outcome will be an increase in consumption to chill beer. And I'm like, it's probably bang on,
That actually does make sense.
But would that be brought up? And no. I mean, a very clumsy example of that I like to laugh about is, we live in this society right now that defines progress as going from plastic straws wrapped in paper to paper straws wrapped in plastic. Sorry, folks, that's not progress. It's
and it doesn't make any sense.
The same.
So
it makes no sense.
Well, it's virtue signaling, right? So we're dealing with this for virtue reasons. Most, like any of the plastic that's out in the ocean, do you think it came from Canada? We have great garbage pickup. It's not like everybody's at the beach throwing straws in the ocean. Like, it's not something that happens. You have a receptacle and you put it in it, and it magically goes to a dump.
I've lived through. Yeah, I'm old enough to remember when we had paper bags at IGA, and then everybody said, "Oh, we need to go to plastic to save the trees," and then 20 years later, we need to go back to paper to save the ocean or whatever. And we're going in circle, and that's where I always say to people, like, I love solving problem, and I'm in favor of solutions. If you could convince me that the carbon tax was going, if you let me study the problem properly, and the conclusion was that a carbon tax works, I'll promote it till the cows come home. So, but right now I find it hard to get behind almost any piece of legislation, because it's not addressing the problems. We're not solving problems. We're just, I mean, here in Alberta, you guys are probably the same way. Like, they're banning single-use plastics and bags. You can't even use the bag. Like the local co-op in IGA can't give us bags anymore.
Yeah, that's how it is here in BC.
But
it's
now
horrible.
Yeah. But now there's an increase in sales in garbage bags at Walmart, because people are still buying garbage bags because they need them for their garbage cans. And everybody was using, I have my garbage can here, and it's not, it used to be an IGA bag, but now it's not an IGA bag. It's and then here there's a guy who came up with a beautiful biodecompostable bag, but then the government just didn't want to even open that door, and they said it I don't know, I can't remember why. It's anyways.
Yeah, they won't allow
Yes.
it. So it's just no
No.
exemptions. Sorry,
No
plastic
exemption. Yeah.
is gone. You're not allowed to use it, and we
Ta-
have that here.
Take the victories, though. But on the positive note, I'll take the victory. If the farmers are exempt from fuel, amen. Hopefully that brings the price of food down a little bit. I mean, that was another, the price of food while you were gone. I hit, here's another comedy. Jagmeet Singh and others had a committee, and they brought Galen Weston in front of the committee, and they berated him for
the CEO of
for,
Loblaws, right?
The CEO of Loblaws for gouging consumers. How dare they? And again, I just went on the internet and I found their annual report and I pulled it out and I did a quick graph, and I'm like, man, their profit margin's 1%.
1%. I thought it was like
it's
3 or 4.
No, it's 1%. Even if it was 3 or 4, right? It's been so eroded, and then that was enough. People still didn't get it, so I'm like, all right, let's do it. Let's play a game. So I did. I don't know if you saw the tweet, but I did a household budget of $100,000, and I'm like, what are your expenditures? Do the Pareto analysis. Your top, if a household has $100,000 budget, ballpark $34,000 in taxes, then followed by $25,000 in interest on your mortgage, followed by maybe your transportation, which includes fuel, then maybe your food and so forth. So I'm like, here's all your expenses, and food is like, for a family that makes 100,000, food might be about 10,000. Vacations. So I put them all in there. I'm like, okay, so the Pareto guy in me, the engineer, says 80% of the activity results in 80% of your expenditure. So where do you focus your attention? So if you're really interested in saving money, you would want the family wants their taxes lowered, their interest lowered, and their fuel costs lowered, and stuff like that. So I'm looking at you, Jagmeet. What are the 3 things that you as a government control more than anything else? Inflation, the cost of money, the carbon tax, and all those things. And here you are berating. So even if a family managed to save and scrimp and cancel their Disney membership, their $8,000 grocery budget, if they can find 10% out of their grocery budget, that's $8,000. Jagmeet, if you lower the carbon tax, you save every family $8,000 right away. So come on, dude. Like, stop bullshitting us, and stop picking on Mr. Weston, because he's trying to counter your you do more damage, Jagmeet, than anybody else to the family of with $100,000 income.
I don't know why.
And I'm patronizing a man who's wearing a Rolex. I'm wearing a shitty, $120 watch from Costco.
I don't even wear watches.
I don't have a suit.
I don't see the point of a watch anymore. I got the time on my phone that I carry around everywhere with me. So
this one tells me my heart rate, and
okay, that's fair. Fair.
I'm only at 85.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's fair. But I don't understand. The only thing I can chalk it up to is Jagmeet Singh needs to keep up the rhetoric, because he's a politician and he needs to have like something to go on about. But he's playing a role, right? AVE. I don't know if you know the YouTube channel AVE.
Yeah, I love him. Have you met him in person? I know he responded to one of your.
Not in person. He sent me videos a few times, and I've had him on the channel that way. But he sent me one just basically saying that Jagmeet Singh's a wolf in sheep's clothing. He wants to be a liberal. Like, that's what he really wanted, but he got the job as the NDP leader. And it makes a lot of sense, but he just wants this he just wants to have something to keep going with, but he's going with the platform of the NDP, which is what? A grievance culture. It's a grievance against what? You got to grieve against something. So he's picked Loblaws.
Even the way he was gloating about the budget this week, he's like, hey, I'm fighting for Canadians, and we got you the $1,600 healthcare or whatever. It's like, no, you didn't. But
it's something that nobody wanted anyway. I mean, like, honestly, they've been doing such a bang up job with our healthcare. Just want them to take care of our dentistry now.
What are you trying to do, Joe?
Oh, I think I'm not sure.
So
he's trying to find the profit margin.
One of the things that keeps getting brought up, and I keep running the math every time I find the different numbers that they throw at us. Loblaw made an extra $1 million a day during the year of inflation. You take that $1 million a day, you divide it amongst the 38 million people in Canada,
The fraction. Yeah.
and trying to find the fraction of it. I think I put one too many zeros here. It's 38.25 or 365 million. Or no, it's per day. So I guess it'd just be 1 million.
It's
One,
pennies. Yeah.
3. So every day, the average family or average person spends 2 cents
Yeah.
of that excess greedflation, as
Greedflation
they
is
like
what he
to put it.
calls it. Yeah, that
And then it's complete nonsense, right? I mean, private businesses do not simply increase prices in order to make more profit. It just doesn't work that way. I
well,
mean, you know,
if they did,
if you own a
it's
car,
amazing because
yeah,
there's a market signal that other people would enter the market and do the same, right? If there's
yeah,
excess profits to go around, I'm going to jump in there and I'm going to be an entrepreneur and compete with you. But they can't because it doesn't exist. It's not there.
it doesn't. And in that example, I told people, like, I took pictures of flyers. I'm like, the flyers from Loblaws don't exactly advertise their high prices. All they focus on is their low prices because they're in competition with Walmart and IGA and everybody else, and pennies matter. And I just want to go back to my quick Pareto exercise. I work in industry, and every place I've ever, every place I've ever worked at, when I show up at a new facility and I get my budgets and I'm looking at how things have been running, I always sort it out by power, and I go, oh, we're spending $10 million a year on power, and then we're spending this much on maintenance and this much on this. And then the stuff at the bottom, I ignore it and I go right for the big stuff. I mean, if I'm spending $10 million on power, there's going to be some savings there that I can grab that I'm not going to get on the freaking coffee and the donuts that we put in the lunchroom. So every time I go to an organization and says we're going to save money by canceling the donuts, I'm like, I'm out of here. You guys are idiots. Like, so, and so
Okay, that's
Jagmeet
fair.
Singh, no, and so Jagmeet Singh, yeah, you're an idiot, man, because the money to be saved for an average family is not the healthcare or the dollar coupons at the grocery store or the $13 Disney Plus subscription. It's our taxes, our fuel, our interest rates. My God, like I hope your mortgage is not up for renewal quickly or anything like that. I've been my daughter's about to turn 30 and she's just starting to look into a house, and I did a lot of digging. My God, if for an interest rate to go from 2% to 6% in a matter of a year, the incremental cost on her house is shocking, and that's just money that you're giving away to a bank.
Do you think they
Go after
can?
the banks, Jagmeet.
Yeah, go after the banks. Do you think they'll be able to lower the interest rates?
They're already coming down.
Are
Actually,
they?
there's that's an indicate. That's markets do work like a charm. I mean, there's already been a cool down of the real estate market. I've been looking at it very closely, asking about it on Twitter, and the effects are pretty rapid. Increase the interest rate as soon as people are up for renewal. There's an effect. The number of sales goes immediately down, and it corrects itself pretty quickly. So I think probably another year and things will be back to. I think it got nipped in the bud quickly enough.
It'll
I
never go
hope.
back to zero, though, would it? Like, because that's just
No, no.
outrageous.
Oh God, what a period of history that we lived through. I wish I wish I'd had more money to invest in for down payments on buildings, but yeah, time will tell.
Well, it's an interesting thing though, because like when and people don't realize this, but interest rates being that low, it actually discourages savings. It discourages people
Totally.
putting money into savings because you're not going to make any interest on it. So you have to throw your money into commodities or buy stuff, real estate or what have you. But then if you have too much line of credit and you have too much owing, and the interest rates go jacking up as quick as they did, it could put you underwater.
Yeah, no, and if you're stuck in a moment, you can take advantage of any moment, but you need to think of the next moment. So if you're really good and there's low interest rates, you can take advantage of low interest rates and then know when to get out and take advantage of high interest rates and commodity prices. I mean, that, understanding, to be honest, I mean, I try to benefit all the time. The more volatility, whether it's minerals, whether it's oil, I like volatility because I know how to make money in volatile times. But I also have that luxury. Some people, like my daughter, does not have the luxury. When she needs her house, she needs it now. She can't wait. So yeah. Well, I love volatility. Volatility is
Fair enough. Fair enough. I take it you've done well. You've done well for yourself.
it takes balls to play volatility, man. It takes balls. Like
There's
yeah.
there's one other thing when it comes to what you said about when the interest rate's low, it discourages saving. There's the fact that the value will not increase much, and then when you have the inflation rate that we have currently, if you get a savings account at 3.5% or even a moderate investment account where you're making 5%, you're still losing value year over year. It would be better to sink that money into a non-tangible asset that'll hold its value rather than having it tucked away in the bank, which kind of stabilizes everything.
So gold chains and big trucks it is. All right.
Well, and
That being said, full disclaimer: my wife runs a jewelry store. I don't disavow any financial advice.
and it's topic for another day. But behind, while we've been distracted with all sorts of things, there's been some big movement on other fronts in the world. I mean, the OPEC is about to drop the US dollar as its currency for pricing oil. Like, holy shit, man. That's big news.
That's the biggest news since 1971.
Pretty much, in terms of oil. So, and then the alliances being formed with Saudi Arabia and other countries, and excluding the US, and the fact that somebody says, well, the US, man, the Canada, the Australia, France, Britain, and the US did a deal not too long ago that excluded Canada. So there's some pretty important global events going on, and we are missing the boat. So
well, we're too wrapped up in all this ESG stuff, and we're wrapped up in climate change. I mean, I've always looked at climate change. If they really took climate change seriously, they'd be lobbying against the biggest polluters, China and India. I don't
Totally.
think they take it seriously. I think it's a first world, I don't know, call it a religion or issue that they want to push on people. But this is, it's, if they took it seriously, they would show that they're taking it seriously. That's my opinion.
Who's they? You mean
Our governments. Our
the
governments.
big day? Yeah.
Not
Totally.
the mysterious they behind a curtain. No, our governments. If they had a serious inclining to do something about it, they wouldn't just be, because they're pushing it on other people, right? They're pushing it on other nations as well. Britain's putting pressure on us to perform, and America's putting pressure on us. We're putting pressure on America, but nobody's putting pressure on the biggest polluters, is what I'm saying. And then you have these advocates with the celebrities and all these people. Again, I don't believe that they're taking it seriously at all. I think it's just a virtue signal thing, and they don't realize that they're actually harming us economically.
Hey, Marty, I have a
Yep.
question for you.
Go ahead.
With the current what you brought up regarding the U.S. petrodollar and Saudi Arabia and Russia and all switching to the Chinese currency. Right now, Eastern Canada purchases a lot of oil from the Saudis. Are they going to be participating in the exchange of Chinese currency? Or do you think this will finally potentially be what Alberta needed in order to push our oil out east?
Good question. I I think in the short term, no, it'll, it won't change anything in terms of where the oil comes from, but it might wake a few people up. Um, that said, I pushed for, I worked on Energy East and other projects, and it's not about the price, because if it was the price, then Quebec and Ontario would have been buying oil from Alberta for a long time. So it's not about the price of it, it's about the stigma of pipelines. It's crazy, but it is. I mean, because it's cheaper than we can send it there, cheaper than they can get it from Saudi Arabia, and they're still willing to buy it from Saudi Arabia to this day. And then when you mention the frequency of, say, oil spills offshore versus on land, it's incomparable, but they're willing to accept that risk. So it's not simply about price, because if it was, it would have happened a long time ago. So that's a really interesting topic. I love what Danielle's talking about there. I also like what Pierre's talking about. I mean, I think an east-west corridor for energy infrastructure, for pipelines and energy and stuff like that is long overdue. um now it could become about price. I think that's one of the things. It will become about price, perhaps. But the other thing that is also happening is that the the I'm losing my thought, but the demand is there too. So the price is a factor, but also the amount of energy being consumed by the East is just not slowing down, and so they won't even be able to bring it fast enough with the tankers, so that they will possibly have to bring it in with pipelines. I mean, we saw it with the Enbridge Line 5 and all that fiasco of shutting it down and other things. I mean, like, we think we live in Alberta and we drive a lot of pickup trucks. Man, there's more pickup trucks in Ontario, like in Quebec. Those hypocritical little buggers, like, they don't drive electric vehicles in Quebec. There's more. I think it was about 3 years ago that the sale of pickup trucks surpassed the sale of all other vehicles in Quebec, and
Oh,
they're not
wow.
electric. So, oh yeah, there's all that going
Well,
on.
I live
So
in
their
BC
demand is
where there's
growing.
all the electric
Yeah,
cars, right? Everybody's, smelling their own farts with their electric cars. But even people who have electric cars also have a pickup. Like, this is a
sure.
reality here. People need
Yeah,
pickups,
yeah.
people need 4x4s, people have businesses, people do construction, people, you're not getting away from pickup trucks. They're staying. They're sticking around.
People love them. They're convenient. It's people love them. Yeah. Listen, it's getting late for
It
me.
is.
It's
It is.
what time is it? Well,
Wait,
it's not that late, but you know,
but we've had you on.
I'm
We've
running
had
out
you
of
on
juice.
for over two
So
hours. So I want to thank you so much, Marty Up North, for coming on and filling me in on all the stuff that I missed when I was in Japan on this this past month. A crazy
yeah,
month.
I'm looking at my list. I think we covered everything else. Actually, the only thing we didn't cover, and we'll cover it on another day. Maybe we'll have to do it sooner than later. We didn't talk about Danielle very much. We did not talk about the Alberta election, because it is the next one. I got the card in the mail. That's how close it's getting. Register. I think it's less than 60 days away. So it's
Okay.
probably going to start getting pretty darn heated here. And I'd say in about 2-3 weeks, there's probably going to be some really interesting stuff to talk about. Maybe we do bring in another person from Alberta. I don't know who, but
Sure. I'd like to do
I
some
think
short segments with you as well, because the 10-minute little ten
sure.
minute segment videos that I do in the mornings, they get out farther than a lot of the podcasts usually. And if you want to get information to as many people as possible, let's do it that way.
And then me personally, just so you know, and maybe the viewers, but I'm getting back into work again, more work. I've had all sorts of interesting projects on the go, but now I got another really, really cool one. I'm heading back to Quebec to go abandon wells in Quebec,
Oh, wow.
which is a
Okay.
whole other the
Well,
whole other there's a thousand improperly abandoned oil and gas wells in Quebec, and the government wants to re-abandon them, and the best people in the world close by to abandon wells are right here in Alberta. We got some great expertise in that field, and so a couple of us are heading back to Quebec in the summer to go abandon some wells. Should be fun. I look forward to it.
oh, good times. And well, you speak the language, so
Yeah,
it's definitely helpful.
yeah, yeah.
All right,
All right,
Marty Up
guys.
North. Thank you so much. And well, we'll have you again pretty soon.
We'll see you on Twitter anyways. Cheers, everyone. Good night.
Cheers.